Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode. The title has come, Escorting the Future Through the Past. And so, Mr. Within would like to speak about how we, as a civilization, as a species, as a ship, in some sense going through unknown waters towards the future, we in some sense must increase humanity's inner defenses, and I'll explain what I mean by that. Now to the title, Escorting the Future Through the Past. Technically, everybody I know, their sense of future comes from how their past wants to be different. That means if I was, like, imagine you're happening as a being, and in some sense, if you didn't have access to your past, you wouldn't care about your future. Life would be like a roller coaster, wouldn't it? You can't go back, you can't look back. And so man is this interesting creature, the human being, that after we experience something, we still have access to the experience. So in other words, I'm saying that there was the psychologist, what was his name? I forget his name, but there was the psychologist that spoke about memory and explained memory as like this block of jello where you on this block of jello you pour hot ink with a spoon, and that hot ink goes on the jello and leaves a dent. Now if you were to pour another spoonful of hot ink over that dent that was made, you would notice that it's going to tunnel through. So what I'm saying is, it's not just that you experience something and it's just like a file cabinet memory. We are tunneling through our memories. That means there's a state in the moment, like as a momentary being, like I can sit here right now and all these words that I'm telling you, all these words that you hear in these talks, they are in some sense images. They are images. So think of the human mind's advanced ability to sit somewhere and have endless images. Okay? And the endless images, here's the thing, guys. Some people feel that their imagination is only theirs. You feel you own your mind. And that is why that blocks creativity. The mind is something that, strangely, the more you realize it is the presence of the world, you will find contentment. The more you think it's just you get overwhelmed. That means, isn't it kind of hilarious that we were part of the process of nature? We became conscious, this unconscious process of nature, suddenly we became conscious. Now, when we became conscious, the process changed into particles. That means we were like all one thing, one universe happening. Suddenly, look at these human beings walking around. So, we are oscillating between process and particles. And that was kind of Alfred Whitehead's finding. When I kind of looked at Whitehead's work, he was in some sense, let me tell you, history repeats itself, but it doesn't repeat itself like a circle. It repeats itself like a spiral. And it's, in other words, like a sine wave. That means now we are seeing ourselves as a process, as a particle. Like here, check it out. Unconscious process of nature, the unconscious process of nature became conscious of itself as a particle, as a thing. Okay? So then Whitehead came and said, in some sense, wait a minute, we're not just stuff in the middle of nowhere, we're a process. The intelligence is per se not even in your body, not even in your, like, in the brain. The intelligence is the whole moment. So it's kind of like, it's like jumping in a swimming pool and thinking only that part of the water that you're touching is the pool. You know what I mean? It's like the whole pool. When you get in the pool, like you're in the whole pool. You know what I mean? So here's the idea. We were an unconscious process, Then we became an unconscious... Guys, this is Mr. Within's kind of best way to explain how I perceive evolution. Check this out. Unconscious process, then unconscious particle, then conscious process, then unconscious process. So guys, this is the pattern. So I can kind of, like, if I think this echoes all throughout history, I think this pattern I see, how can I say it? I am a designer before I am a character in a story. I am a creature of design. I am existent in a moment of design. You know, when I saw geometry, guys, I can tell you I did not see shapes on paper. I saw order in the chaos. I saw form in the formless. I saw vision in the mind of man. And I wouldn't be surprised. Geometry is a language. Geometry is the next great language of all languages. We're going to be cooler than it. Our language in the future is going to be cooler than the hieroglyphs. So guys, unconscious process is literally no selfhood. It's just the world. Conscious particle is the self. Then the conscious process is how in some sense self, and it's in some sense, okay, let me see, what would the idea be? Unknown process, it's the world. That means before anything, it was just stuff moving. So it was unknown stuff moving. It was an unknown process. Then at some point in nature, creatures developed that had the design of legs. We had limbs. We could walk on the earth. We weren't just a chunk of the earth. We could walk on it. So we became a particle to ourselves in some sense physically, but unconscious. That means consciousness still doesn't exist. That means the objective evolution wasn't aware of the subjective existence yet. You know? There's two views on evolution. You're entering a state you have never been before, or you are returning to a state which you have familiarity with. That means you could feel like you're evolving towards the future, or you can feel, I don't know how to say it, like you can feel evolution in accordance to various points of reference. Guys, 4 phases to evolution, and I'm going to tell you which one we're in. First phase of evolution, the unconscious process. We couldn't be conscious, literally. Literally, stuff was moving before it was stuff to itself. Then we had the unconscious particle. Stuff came into motion. The design of a moving creature was set into motion, but that moving creature was not aware it was a moving creature. So we went from an unconscious world to an unconscious self. That's the second phase of the evolution. That's the objective evolution. Okay? Then we have, in some sense, the subjective evolution, which the subjective evolution is how we are from an unconscious particle, suddenly from just being this creature that endlessly is like, you know, those kind of, those toy monkeys that kind of like just keep stepping forward, you twist it and the monkey keeps walking forth. It's like the unconscious particular evolution was like that. It was in some sense evolution just moving. It was pretty much life didn't have a direction. It was just movement. It was just some creature had legs and was like, alright, like it didn't even have psychology. It was just movement. From unconscious movement, we became still, the particle is unconscious, but we became conscious of the process. Okay? That means pretty much oh my God, what was the guy's name? Jacques Lacan. Jacques Lacan, this man, he noticed something that many great scholars have. But he put it into words very well. And he said the most important moment in a child's life is that moment where the child sees itself in the mirror, because that is the moment the child begins existing to itself outside of itself. So the subjective evolution is how you became aware that you are something, but that thing is in a space that's not a thing. Do you see what I mean? Who has said this world is just material? Who has said this world is only immaterial? Who has given full power to reality? Who has given full power to that which is beyond reality? There will come a time where we will see we are the blank page, but we are also the one who holds the pen. So you realize you are technically in every moment of your life authoring your selfhood, you're authoring your existence, the way you engage, the way your attention beams out from you throughout the day. You know, we are an energetic expression. That means I remember there came a moment where I was just thinking about myself and I'm like, wait a minute, how can I judge energy that cannot be created or destroyed? That means the human framework, it's a certain conditional relationship. That means I'm a human being because I have met certain conditions. If I hadn't met those conditions, I wouldn't physically exist. You know, that means I've been like surviving this far, right? We are right now at the end of the third phase, the third grand evolutionary phase that our species has gone. Technically, we are moving into the third. So, unconscious process, first evolutionary phase was objective. We became a creature that had legs, didn't have mind yet. You know, then we became a creature that suddenly realized, saw itself in a mirror or something, and then suddenly opened its eyes in a greater dimensional stance than before. So suddenly we became conscious that, wait a minute, the mind is not stuff, the mind is like a river where stuff is moving in. Do you see? All phenomena is moving. You don't realize this, guys. Your mind is you. It is where you comes from. It is where you lives. It is where you dies. It is where, in some sense, the creature evolves beyond shape. And what could that mean? What could that mean? Do you understand the intensity of this visualization? Do you understand how fascinating it is to wonder about the evolution of this life form beyond the life and beyond the form? Right now, we are life forms that it's natural or orchestration. Who knows, in 120 years from now, or maybe 200 years from now, I don't know. So at some point, its children might suddenly imagine you see your best friend, and you're like, hey man, something's different about you. And your best friend's like, yeah, interesting, you notice. And then you're like, when did you get a robotic hand? Like, you imagine your friend just replaced their normal hand with a robotic hand. You know, in one of my science fiction stories, it was called Project 12. I created this world set in the year 2289. I think 289. It was definitely 2280, 200 above. And I had created this world where human beings had gotten bored of their natural biological existence and had in some sense began replacing their organic existence for a digitally capable one, not realizing that they are in some sense making themselves non-existent. That means we have to protect our simple human state of living because all the efforts, everything, all the forces that are challenging humanity's position, they are trying to either make him go towards the empty or make him in some sense go towards infinity. That means we are creatures that if we speed up, we don't exist to ourselves, and if we slow down, we don't exist to ourselves. So you must find your true speed. You must find your pace. You must find your style. You must listen to the voice of your own mind. And then you will realize the gift of the lifetime. That you thought what you needed was outside of you when everything outside of you seemed to be going within. That means I have asked. You don't know, guys, the mind is so advanced that I consider, first of all, language to be an advanced technology. Because the mind plays with language, I consider the mind to be an advanced user of language. So anybody who's hearing me talk, if you, anybody ever wants to know what I see when I'm giving these talks, this language is literally ink. These sounds you're hearing, they are ink on the silence. Ink drops falling on the silence. That's why language is evocational. And so how do we escort the future through the past? You see, it's interesting. The reason I say escorting the future through the past, I want you, human being, to think of it this way. I want you to think that you are a knight, like those medieval films, you know? The knight that would go in front of the bow to the queen and the king and all this. The knight that would protect the realm. The knight that had some sort of honor. That means medieval knights were like the samurai of medieval Europe. Or samurai are like the medieval knights of Japan. What I'm saying is that the knight, that means right now you may as a human being think that your very purpose in life is just to attend to yourself. But there is a joy that few people live to see it. And it doesn't matter. It's like even I've been shocked because some of the oldest people I've seen, they haven't even seen this joy. You know? And it is the joy that you don't have just an opportunity to live an individual life. You are part of a species that is pioneering its advancement. That means we must, in some sense, suddenly notice ourselves as it's like we're kids on a playground, every kid's going doing their own thing, but suddenly these kids are realizing it's not a playground, it's a battlefield. If it is the effort of humanity to find this most intelligent strategy to bypass extinction. Do you know? That means there is at some point we can all lay back. I can go, save up and in some sense build, get the most. What do you call it? Get the best expensive chair and just sit on that chair and watch the world till the day it ends. Do you know? But that's the thing. You are an energetic being, and what can energy do? And the most evidence of the most immediate evidence of what energy can do is move. So I realize it doesn't matter where I existed, when in history I existed. At some core level, it is effort. And it is effort that is coming from a context that is free from the beginning or a context that has been shackled till the end. That means when will you realize you must open the doors for yourself? That you can wait. I want every human being to try this out. I want you to go, like the next time you're in like, I don't know, some shopping place somewhere, where they have doors. I want you to, in some sense, kind of like go at the door, but don't open it and wait. I want you to wait for the door to open. That means the next time you're by a door, let's say in public, I want you to not enter that door. Just wait. Just wait until somebody else comes and opens the door. You will see. You can wait and somebody else can come and in some sense open the door, but you will see you have killed your own time. You have killed your own hypothetical time. It's like, the teacher went to the student and shouted at the student in front of all the other students, like a Greek emperor in a Colosseum. The teacher shouted at the student and he's like, "Why are you late? Don't you understand time, kid?" And the kid was like, "I do. Time is arbitrary. That's why we wear watches to remind ourselves." So technically, before time, who was late? It's like you gotta ask the teacher, like imagine the teacher's like, "Why are you late?" And you're like, "Explain late." Explain time. And the teacher's like, you didn't come here on time, you should have been here on time. You're like, "No, explain time." The teacher goes and brings the whole philosophy department, they still can't explain time. Really, the most deepest question ever in reality is what time is it and what is time? Like really, you tell me what time it is. You look at your watch, dear human being on a rock in the middle of nowhere and tell me what time it is. When will we realize we are the colors of the paintings we see? We must escort the future through the past by not forgetting the past, but allowing the past to give a freedom. The past, your past should not stress you. It should not, like, you're taking away the wrong memories of the past. Think about your past being an ability to access imagery and emotional even realities. Guys, the whole metaphor of the door thing I was saying, go and wait for the door. I just want to say you get a reality of if you wait for things, they don't happen quick. That means imagine somebody said you have literally 100 years or whatever amount of years to build an advanced civilization, and then it's like you got to punch out. You got to punch out of existential manifestation. That means I consider I will tell you, I will be very open with the audience. I have prayed. When I say pray, I mean I have prayed for my future self, guys. I don't know if this idea is real for people, but I have had moments where I've just seen something, my mind has literally given me a glimpse of this tragedy in the future, and right on the spot, the action of, let me tell you, communication resets the antenna of your experience. Anyways, the fourth phase of evolution, guys, is the unconscious process. This is going to be the biggest leap. That means objective evolution, no problemo. We weren't even conscious to suffer. Subjective evolution, yeah, we're conscious, we suffer, but still, we've gotten through most of that phase. Now we're going towards the next evolution, where I have called it the evolution beyond the language threshold. Okay, I call it the advancement beyond the language threshold, and let me be honest, I think this moment in evolution will actually happen externally. Externally, it will initiate 2,000, 3,000. It will initiate 3,600 years from now. It will initiate 3,600 years from now. Guys, in 3,600 years from now, we're going to be an interstellar civilization. I can see that. I mean, I'm just one person speaking, but you know what I mean. Like, that's my prediction. I think in 3,600 years, we're going to become not only a Type 3 civilization, but we have mastered, in some sense, hopefully through Mr.Within Civilization 2.0, a strategy to bypass extinction indefinitely. That is my only concern. It's like, you know what it is? It's like a ship has holes in it, and when your ship has old holes in it, why do you do it? So, interesting question, Jess, in the chat section says, why not in the near future? Why I say 3,600 years. Guys, here's the thing. At the end of this talk, I've realized that when I answer questions in the middle of the talk, neither I answer the questions properly, neither the talk is done completed. So everybody feel free to, in some sense, what do you call it, write your questions, every question in the chat section at the end of the talk. I'm just going to go one by one and answer every single question that there is, and there's freedom of mind. You can write anything. But anyways, guys, so I'm going to just focus on the talk here for a second. The reason I say 3,600 years, because in my own school of thought, I have designed a strategy to bypass extinction. I call it Civilization 2.0. It has 3 phases, and in some sense, in 3,600 years, I feel it is going to be, if I'm correct, it's between, let me see. 6. Okay, here's Jess in the chat section. Listen to this and let me tell you this. The Type 3 civilization that scientists speak about is not the Type 3 civilization I see. I don't even call it Type 3. So you got to realize I saw that the scientists were doing something, and then I'm like, okay, I saw every person's doing something. Then I'm like, okay, the most valuable thing I can do is see the unique angle that my eyes have. So this is Mr. Within's vision. If certain great transformations occur, in 600 years, phase 1 of civilization 2.0 will be to build sky cities. Phase 2 would be to heavenize the earth. After we have gone into our sky cities, all human infrastructure is in the sky, we're going to begin heavenizing the earth. We're going to let the earth become like an uninhabited planet, become an uninhabited paradise, the heavenized earth. After phase 2.0 is completed, we're still, the civilization 2.0, pretty much I'm saying that we should go as a species and live for 2,000 years in our skies and let the earth breathe, you know? So after that 2000, after phase 1 of civilization 2.0 and phase 1 and 2 are completed, phase 3 will begin, which is the true advancement beyond the language threshold, and it has 2 dimensions. You see, scientists are just considering just going and repopulating, like overpopulating the whole universal sector. Like that's the type 3 idea. We're using the power of our sun, and probably will use the sun to disseminate genetical data all over the cosmos, you know? You can imagine an advanced civilization doing that. It's like, imagine you're an advanced alien civilization. You're like, how do I overpopulate the galaxy? And then you realize the sun is ridiculously giving beams everywhere. So you would plant genetical seeds, or the designs or the potential for light beams to sculpt genetics on surfaces of planets, you know? So anyways, guys, now I'm going to go back to the talk, and I'm going to make this full screen, and at the end of it, which is probably going to be in like an hour or something, I'm going to attend to the questions. By the way, sometimes, guys, I speed through ideas, and if somebody has a piece of paper, and let's say I went to, like, maybe I explained something 3/4 of one thing, and I suddenly went on a different path from that concept. Anybody can remind me for me to explain it more, you know? Alright, guys, I'm going to make this full screen. You should definitely keep the questions coming. I'll attend to it at the end. Every human being has a different DNA. Because we have a different DNA, our eyes open to the world different than anyone else's eyes. So technically you can say the human species has 8 billion types of human beings in it. Even though it's one species, but there's 8 billion and growing different types, constantly new types of human beings. Now, the cool thing is that a certain amount of the growth of the human being is genetical. That means the child is grown in the body of the mother. The child, in some senses, is brought into the world, and after the child is brought into the world, it is indoctrinated, in some sense conditioned into the language and the intelligence of its environment. Okay? So what does that mean? That means you are growing in your childhood as an object, then you start growing as a subject, then at some point you realize the object and subject are your free wills, in the command of your free will. You realize doors open when you open them. Somebody's like, yo man, to what God do I need to pray to open the door? Somebody said to just open it. It's open. You know? It's like a curtain that everybody's afraid to touch because they think their hand will burn if they touch the curtain. Not realizing that the curtain is never there. They have put the curtain there. I remember, guys, years ago, I gave this talk, which it was called The Orphans of Existence. And in this talk, I was saying, I was trying to kind of look at the psychology of a child that is an orphan, and a child and a human being that feels cosmically stranded. You see, there is a mystery, and that mystery is how you are opening your eyes from your inner realms first. That means the young child, the youth has arrogance and a sort of egoic pride, mainly because it doesn't notice yet that what the child hasn't noticed yet, what it sees is not just what it sees. So I would say anytime there is not a tolerance to see new dimensions, extremism is the only way to counteract the boredom of an idea that is not evolving. That means imagine everybody, like people, all human beings on the planet just had one idea. Like there was literally, we went to our libraries and it was just one book. One book. It was kind of like, you know, this view, it's as if, like, imagine how insane would it be. This is what I feel is happening, guys. The same way Isaac Asimov shared this story of Omar, and it is about a time where religion was in some sense a justification for fighting. You see, and it doesn't mean it's good or bad, it just means people fought over stuff back in the day. Then they started fighting over ideas which weren't technically stuff, but where they were the stuff of thought, the stuff of mind. So war begins because two people are fighting over the same ball. Wars end when people realize there's more more potential out there. There's more phenomena out there. There's always more than you occurring. That means it was so fascinating for me that I remember there was a certain level of shyness in my youth where I was like, oh my God, I felt under the surveillance of the better judgment of the world. In my youth, I felt literally like, oh my God, one mistake I do, everybody sees me. So I was like, it was this sort of like self-induced paralysis of the inner realm feeling uncomfortable in the outer realm. Then I realized, in some sense, that no one on this earth other than myself has seen me. That means it suddenly dawned on me, nobody has my mind. How can I ask someone about it? How can I, it's literally like you want to open the engine of the hood of the car and study the engine. And so let's say you're a psychologist and you want to open the hood of the psyche and see how it is preserved and kept linguistically. That means when you open the hood of the psyche, you find the mechanisms of language being the definitions of the entities self, conceptual being, a conceptual action, and contextual being. That means, seldom this is said, you think the master shall, like, let me tell you the difference between what I feel is the mastery mindset and the novice. The novice doesn't have a sense of the extreme. The novice hasn't seen the wilderness of the craft. So there are Shaolin warriors who haven't been in battle, and there are warriors who have been in battle. Those warriors who have been in battle, they have been forced into situations where they had to make the skill their own. At some point in life, you will realize you can also have a different engagement of your moment. You can engage your moment in a new way. And that new way is when when you become comfortable with the unknown. When you don't fear the unknown, the gods are like, this man has dared open and keep his eyes open in a battlefield where has dared keep the eyes of his mind open in the battlefield. The gods instantly bless the warrior. Because it is about the effort. It is about how intensely the finger hits the piano key. And with what precision. And so for me, I was looking at history and I'm like, what is this? I'm looking at notes. Am I looking at a symphony of human behavior throughout time? It's as if time is the conductor stick, and the way time moves, everything changes and gets redirected. That means it's like when man tries to become immortal, it's like Optimus Prime going in space trying to fight its creator. Do you know? It's like, guys, let me tell you, back in the day, men did not only fight men, like people did not fight people, but people fought the gods as well. There was this like Greek emperor who in some sense he suddenly commanded his army back in ancient Greece. He commanded his army. He had beef with Poseidon. Like he did I don't know what the exact backstory was, but it was like this emperor had gotten offended by Poseidon. Like it rained. Like I think maybe he was like if somebody splashed water on his face and he's like, I'm blaming Poseidon. You know. This emperor commands his army he gets his most like incredible warriors and he's like, soldiers, we're going to war with Poseidon. And he commands the soldiers to go and start with their swords attacking the ocean waves, you know? And imagine you were a turtle back in the day watching that and being like, what the fuck? But I'm saying that man also like you can do, like literally I can move my hand. Okay, here. Just like how you can move a physical object like this mouse of the computer is right here. I can physically move this. I'm pushing this forth on the table. Do you see my objective energy, the objective dimension of my energy moved the objective, but I can also just move my hand in the air and in some sense have a subject move. So in some sense, ceremonial practice, ritual, all this weird stuff that these like evidently secret groups are doing, you know, it's unnecessary. It's because it's not unnecessary, but they are trying to give themselves permission so they feel something is true. But that's the wrong approach. You can always get duped. Let me tell you why. Because you are a natural being. That means no human ideology has a better answer for you than nature. Nature has better answers. Right now, I'm giving these talks, but I'm telling you, you going and observing the nature of your world is so much of a better teacher. You know, it is the only teacher, really. So here's the idea, guys. If you don't care for what you see in the mirror, you won't develop it. You won't advance it. So there is something where I think it's good to talk about detached advancement. Detached advancement. That means you are inspired by something in the past to redirect something in the future. But you are not defined by your past. The past is literally a toolbox. Like I remember my past if I want access to a design I'm more familiar with, you know? Like when I close my eyes and I try to remember something, it is literally equivalent to somebody looking through the pages of a book to try to find a certain page. You know, but it's not like pages, it's simply the nature of attention. The master was in a world where the world was the mastery. That means it's not just a relationship of self with self or past self with future self. It's also a relationship of past world with future world, and in some sense how your past self, in some sense, can perceive the future world before being in the future. That means right now I can imagine what tomorrow would look like. Okay? Even though tomorrow is not right now, but now I can imagine what tomorrow would look like. You know, Albert Einstein says we created time so everything doesn't happen all at once. But what would it mean if everything happened all at once? That means there is never night and day. There is just one moment where change is spinning in. Do you see? Like, I was mind blown, guys. I don't know how people are so casual. You know, people like don't like. I could totally see why our human ideology is so outdated. How we see ourselves as human beings is so outdated. That means like the Tony Starks in the future are going to be like, "What is this? Let's update civilization." You know, it's like Jarvis, go update civilization. We have to find pretty much this is the human effort. We build headquarters, we maintain defense, then we make advancements, and that's how various systems move, really. That's pretty much called growth. Literally, when you look at the human body, it's like it starts with this simple directive, this simple, like your DNA is get the instruction. The DNA is like a seed for how your body's gonna grow. You know what I mean? It's like on it. It's honestly human life is really how what is strange is the cells. That means cells can become human, a human being. A cell has such intelligence within it. A single cell. I'm speaking in a biological context. A single cell has the intelligence and the design of the DNA implanted in it. Guys, the body doesn't define you. What perceives is the definer. How the known and the unknown are being your sight right now is reality. Guys, for me, the spirit of the title can be captured in the mindset of that night in the wallpaper. I don't know who drew this, guys, but whoever it is, the artist is incredible. Oh, here, I found the name of the artist. Okay, here. Let me put it. Guys, this artwork, this illustration, is from, what do you call it? Let me write it in the description of the video. Pretty much the vision that there's something bigger than you that you need to care for, and when you care for it, dimensions in life open in association to deep down how behind the edge of your eyes you're feeling about the world. You can say a person's desire, you think the mind that has endless desires. No, I was like, why do I have, there was a time where I was like, why do I have so many desires? And I was like, what's wrong with having desires? You know, I'm like, what is it? Like, the person's thirsty, drinks a glass of water. They have a desire to drink the glass of water, but for example, the person can't have a desire to have sex. and for example, the mystical, renunciate mindsets back in the day, uh, you know, and I was like, what is this? They're still both desires. Like, what's the difference? Of wanting to drink a glass of water or wanting to, for example, kind of experience sex. So it's one of those things where I don't know how to say it. It's like the desire is biased. That means it's like all our desires, all imagine, just fathom all the desires you have as a human being. And now, literally, you right now, all the things you want. It could be stuff, it could be all the levels of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Okay? Physiological, psychological, even much deeper than that. So I'm saying, like, all your desires, even the desire for freedom, the desire not to suffer, the desire for a momentary heaven, I don't know, whatever. Like the desire. All your desires, imagine, they are branches, and now you find what the trunk is. That means all desire comes down to an ultra desire. Okay? When you find that ultra desire, you're finding the trunk of the tree of how the mind is choosing to move. I'm just saying we should have the elegance and the maturity and the advanced foresight of a civilization that could at some point be like, all right, I gotta put the language technology down and really look at what is the experience. That means when you return to your experience, there is no lying and there's no liar. Literally, there is just moment. You know? That means, you see, only the deviation of movement in accordance to more realer movements is the lie. So that means, what was it? What was his name? I think it was Aristotle. He's like, only, I don't know. Pretty much, it's just this idea that anytime the person doesn't stay true to themselves, their mind is technically branching out towards a resistance. So imagine, like, your brain is like a city, okay? And when a person doesn't like something from the moment, it's as if a certain part of the brain, neurons are firing up. So in this, let's say, kingdom, neuron kingdom, okay, a part of the kingdom doesn't like the decision of the moment. A part of the brain is rebelling against what the whole brain is perceiving. You see, it's the task of the majority to now explain why the majority decided that. Sometimes, guys, for a hobby, anytime I get bored, I just try to look at a system and try to wonder how it can update. Sometimes I do this with political systems. And for example, for democracy, democracy is it is it is an efficient it is a good political system, but it is a political system that, just like communism, the human nature has not elevated. That means, for example, so many political ideologies, when they were first shared, were like, great, awesome, nice. Then the person realized the human beings didn't have the fairness, didn't have the decency to conduct it. Because we're machine, because we're in some sense like, because we're not machines, the political system doesn't have perfection. Like for example, when people vote for candidates, like how much information, how much research is the average person doing before voting, right? And it's hilarious. It's kind of like the politicians are not even smart to, instead of creating videos making each other look bad, the politicians should make advanced commercials explaining the world they see. Do you know what I mean? That means it's like politics has descended, but back in the day it had ascended. Do you know what I mean? That means if we had a time machine and our ancestors could see how we are living now, and what I mean by this is that the nobility of character has shifted. It's kind of like this. Imagine you're a person and you normally drink a cup of coffee, okay? Now imagine you went to this coffee shop and the person was super nice, you know? And, and let's say she gives you an extra cup of coffee. Then the next day you go there, she gives you two extra cups of coffee. Then the next day you go, she gives you a third cup of coffee. Like that means every day you're getting more of the same. Okay? So then at some point you're sitting at a table with 20 coffees, okay, and you even paid for one, but 20 coffees were given. And you realize you can only drink one coffee. You can only drink one coffee. But you can have endless coffees on the table. This warrior in the illustration, that is in some sense, look at the mind. Like I was looking at this picture, guys, and I was like, what is this guy doing? Like what strategy does he possibly have to, in some sense, and then I realized what this guy's strategy is in the wallpaper. This man, just think about it, guys, dragging this ridiculously giant creature that spits fire everywhere, right? This man, this knight, is running towards it. Why? And I'm just impressed about the courage of the horse. Animals should fear fire, but this horse is like the mind of the horse and horses are such next level animals, guys. I think they are in a telepathic empathy with their rider. This warrior is like, oh my god, this fire is so close to me. He's riding on the horse, but he's like, I'm gonna take the attention of this dragon and I'm going to take him away from the town or somewhere. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's probably the strategy of this knight. After some point, every violent person in history, let's say if they were alive and looking at what they had done, they would just be like, why did I step on a part of a garden that should have grown? For me, violence, it's not the energy, any intense energetic activity will feel worth it after you do it. Doesn't matter if you move bricks, it doesn't matter. My brother told me this funny thing once where he told me he saw this video where this kid in like some country, what do you call those things? I don't know the English name for it. Those things for that thing for gardening where it's kind of like a bucket with wheels where you move dirt around, and it has handles. Like, what do you call it? I don't know the English name for it, but so anyways, my father was no, sorry, not my father, my brother was telling me the story that in some sense this kid comes and gives this tool to this like villager, this primitive man, and this more primitive man, not primitive by nature. You know, people's emotions could be much more ahead of their time, their emotional abidance of their nature compared to their psychological constitution. Like, we're not just creatures that our sanity is just in thoughts and words and language. It is also in our emotional abidance. That means it's like we got to keep the balance, or chaos is everywhere. Pretty much, my brother said this kid gave this tool. Oh, wheelbarrow. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thanks. You know, a barrel. Yeah, guys. The Persian word for it is forgun. You know. So I was just seeing like just the Persian word for it. I couldn't remember the English. But anyways, guys, yeah, this kid gives a wheelbarrow to this villager. The villager doesn't understand the wheelbarrow, and the villager puts all the bricks in the wheelbarrow, then lifts up the wheelbarrow like a basket and moves the wheelbarrow without pushing it on its wheels. It hadn't occurred to the guy to use the technology that was in front of him. And the kid was kind of like not good natured, so the kid's just filming this, putting it on YouTube and laughing, not telling the guy, and the guy's like breaking his own back. Like, life is savage in so many dimensions, guys. You know, there was a story that this is a good story for the moral of friendship, guys. They say that there was this old man. He's going hunting, and he suddenly sees this bear in a trap. And he looks at the bear, and the bear is crying, and the bear is saying, "Somebody help me!" And the old man, like, "All right, bear, calm down. You know, you know, bear yourself." And the old man frees the bear from the wounds, and in some sense, this is a story, guys. The old man, in some sense, sees this bear and says, "Okay, bear, come to my house and I'll heal your wounds." And the old man is so lonely, this old guy, and he's like, he becomes best friends with the bear. And this is an old story, guys, so it doesn't relate to modern context. But, like, there's a simplicity to the story. This bear feels this old man was his savior, and he's like, for the rest of my life, I'm gonna be your best friend and help you, you know? And the old man's like, "Thank you, bear, thank you," you know? And the bear's like, "But we gotta buy honey on the way." You know? Anyways, guys, the story is that this bear sincerely, authentically cares for this old man and becomes the protector. So there's one night a wolf comes nearby, the bear roars. But here's the issue, guys. Here's the issue. One day, the old man is sleeping outside. It's a sunny day. He's sleeping on the grass, just normal nap. The bear comes, and the bear sees this fly or this bee. For a second, like, in some sense, fly, sit on the head of the old man. And the bear is so sincerely wants to protect the old man that the bear gets a giant rock, and he's like, "I'm gonna kill this fly." And he throws the rock and accidentally kills the old man in the story. So the moral of the story is, don't have friends that can't see beyond themselves. That's the moral. That means don't have robotic friends. Or not robotic. See, the bear was sincere. I don't know how to say it. So, guys, another way I could just say it, it's pretty much like respect everybody's existence and their unknown potential. Honor the unknown potential of your species and whatever face of your species you see, but at the same time realize that we don't have the same sight. So there can be a collision in vision, right? So that is in some sense, even though marriage is this idea that has been kind of this pattern that has been passed down, it is pretty much what has kept us around, and because the child needs examples of human beings to learn from. The child needs a community. So the parents that are, I could tell you, parents that are smart, they allow their young child to feel the presence of the community when they're young. Do you know? Because then the child learns to trust a community presence at a young age. But certain children who they are not introduced to or they are not welcome to more efficient systems, they will keep repeating their past system, right? On some level, like Matrix, the code that's moving behind our eyes is the language we have in explaining the world. We escort the future through the past by being aware that the present is where the permission for it to happen is. If you notice, your memories technically not in the domain of your free will. The memory, you can't change the memory. The memory is the memory, right? But in some sense, you see memory. Like I'm telling you this, does free will have an image? How can we give a shape to free will outside of a process? That would be the question. Guys, I'm just writing this question because I'm gonna, at the end of it, I'm gonna answer all the questions. So anybody who just recently just joined, feel free to share questions in the chat section at the end of the talk. I'm just gonna read the whole list, scroll down and just see what comes up, you know. Anyways, let's go to the picture. The mindset, the view, the eyes of this night. Okay, the eyes of the human being currently, and realizing that the past has set certain patterns into motion into society and civility. At the same time, evolution has given us a certain ability to use patterns. So I feel that pretty much in life, you can either feel empowered or you can feel there is no power. Very simple. If you feel powerless, you will cheer on the powerless. If you feel powerful, you will cheer on the powerful. That is the law of nature, because you are pulled towards what is real to you. But when we go to study reality, we have to, in some sense, at some point, sit down and just like a person looking in the mirror after an intense event, being like that song, like, what was it, Johnny Cash or something? What have I become? And the guy's like, I've become rich. I'm joking, guys. That was a parody of a Johnny Cash song. I'm just saying that there will come a time where we will stop using language like Cirque du Soleil. We will find ourselves only moving the pen as if you're a writer that only writes when it's required. Guys, because for me, I notice since my childhood, in every film, the archetype of the warrior was that the warrior had a weapon. The warrior had a sword and a shield, right? So we were evolved to live with tools, you know? So mankind was in some sense armed. That means your tool was like an extra arm. Was like an additional advantage. We must not fear the definitions that we think will never change, even though everything changes in this universal sector. We have built a civilization based on fixed laws, fixed ideas, fixed nations, fixed belief, fixed territories, fixed whatever you want, classification and boundary. Too much ownership going on in this earth. What do we really own? We are like temporary tourists in manifestation, and we don't even experience the manifestation one way. That means even if you own something in one day in a certain vibe, tomorrow if you look at your ownership of the same object, let's say this coffee cup in front of me, like my ownership of this coffee cup is different. I've noticed that when I'm not thirsty, I'm not literally my mind. I'm not thinking of the image or the idea of water is not there. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like the body speaks. It's you know what it is? It's like the body is the child of the mind. Or I could say, here's the thing. It's like there is the body, then there's the mind. Then for the mind, the body is in some sense like, I just want to say your mind is like the body of your soul. So before you physically move, there is something that doesn't have location, doesn't have a body, it is space. You are space before you are matter. That is what awareness is. That is what the light of a candle in a dark room is. You are the vision. So vision first. Then we're like, all right, candle is lit in the room. What does the self look like? The light beam of the candle is in some sense, the shadow is the subject. Our ideas are shadows of the mind. I have wondered about the concept of honor. I have found myself at moments completely disgraced by my own existence and completely graced by my own existence. You know? It's like the person believing that the person's going to heaven suddenly realizing they are in heaven. They're like, wait a minute, you telling me heaven is in earth? That means earth is on in heaven technically being simulated. The earth is in the heavens. I envision an advanced civilization where, just like the Shaolin monk, who was schooled in both Zen teachings and practical physical application, you know what that means? That means we don't want the best from best of the worlds. We want the best from each world. That means I realize this is how change on a psychological level happens. There is no longer a need for external rebellion. Just live in the advanced civilization you see behind your eyes. The mind is the projected. As I'm speaking to you right now, these are projections. And in some sense, it's like someone saying, like, it's like this. It's like judging a film based on one frame. That's what a belief is. The world is a changing film. A language and thought and image and symbolism and all this is framing the world in a certain way. It is creating a mask using Thor's hammer, which is the divine process of the cosmos. An advanced civilization will have master, not like, just like how like the king's guard had master swordsmen. The future of the civilization, which is the true king of the civilization, that means we're all knights of the future. KNIGHTS, knights of the future. That means I don't care, like, I don't want to say I don't care, but like, more important than the honor I have for myself is the honor I have for the future of the self of the world, the future world. There's nothing more interesting to me on this planet than what can happen. For me, I started looking at life through potentials, and strangely, karma was like, I don't know how to say it. It was like your karma is your psychology. Your psychology is your choice. Your choice is your free will. Your free will is basically the effort of movement. So really, it's like the energy you have before you move. There's been times where I've been so tired. Literally, I've been very tired, but my mind started rolling, like as if behind my eyes, the inner film was going on, and I was like, as if like the talk. It was as if my body wanted to sleep, but my mind had just woken up. And so I kind of sat down and I gave the talk. I gave the talk in that exhaustion, only to realize that in the ultimate exhaustion of the human effort, there is a moment where the bird flies the highest it can in the sky, in the darkness of the conditions of this plane of existence. The blue jay flies. And it flies so high into the sky, and for so long into the sky of the space-time continuum, that the blue jay suddenly realizes its wings have no strength. The blue jay realizes its mind can no longer have any direction. It has reached the edge of the possible effort. And it is only in that instant where it's like the last cell of a caterpillar in metamorphosis in the cocoon dying, and there is this void, and then there is the initiation of the cells of the butterfly. Mysticism is how our mind is transforming like a butterfly. That means your physical body, sure, Darwin, we'll give you that. We'll give you that point. That means like I'm on Darwin's side in regards to objective evolution, the gradual process over billions of years and whatnot. But I'm saying the mind can transform. The mind can see the form multidimensionality, as multidimensional. So right now, guys, check it out. In this moment, I could see myself as one person in multiple worlds, or I can see multiple people in one world. Do you see how the mind is literally a pen on an empty piece of paper. And when you care for it, you're like, whoa, is this pen writing on its own? Imagine you guys, check this out. Imagine one day you come home and you open the door of, let's say, your room, and you suddenly see on your table, on your office table, let's say, you have in some sense a pen moving, making squiggly lines on an empty piece of paper on its own. It's like some next level Jedi shit, So what I'm saying, it's like, imagine you open the door of your room and you see the pen is moving on its own, but the pen is not writing anything, making squiggly lines. The moment, imagine you hold this pen, all those squiggly lines vanish and the page is empty again, and now the pen moves before your hand moves. And the pen, the moment it touches your hand, in some sense you write the greatest novel. Imagine. It's as if the pen is the intelligence. So I'm saying your mind is an endless process of self-generation and world generation, and an oscillation between gazing from which came first. On some level, everything is what it is. Everything is just being on a pure level of being, and man's level of communication is an additional dimension. That means, to be honest, we can never say anything about how everything is instantaneously being. Like, who can comment? It's just being. Who can comment on existence? Can you go to someone and tell them they exist less than you? No. Everybody exists. But people are experiencing their existence in different classifications and hierarchies, or whatever way their eyes, in some sense, embrace the world. The mystery of the individual. That is where we will be pulled towards. The mystery of the individual, that's the collective. You know what it's like? It's like your sense of self is like a ship. Like, imagine you're a captain of a ship, and that ship is your sense of self. Your ego, like anytime your attention in the conscious waking state is identifying with a subject. Anytime you exist as a subject, that's the ego. The ego is pretty much how you're a self in your inner realms. You know, guys, I would say something like this, that, in some movies, like I remember seeing, that there would be some characters who would suddenly sacrifice themselves to save another character. But then, when that character sacrificed himself to save the other character, that character felt betrayed. That character felt, why did nobody try to save me? And so imagine somebody is about to fall down and somebody runs to save them, but then the guy who runs to save the other person is about to fall down, then somebody else comes and saves him. And it's this endless cycle till ad infinitum. We are saving each other out of cruel programs of existence. The thing is that we can make the world accessible in two ways. There is an advantage to being a collective. We're pretty much like bees that have the understanding of the beehive, but we haven't built a good beehive. We haven't built the beehive. You know? We can perceive how an advanced civilization would look like. Like, every person can look at something and be like, yo, this could totally be better. You know? But it's the effort that's crucial. That means there is a gap between, it's pretty much like a mountain where every phase of it, your experience of the mountain will change. So the only advice is go forth. That's it. Go forth. There is nothing else. Nothing else that will be more certain that one can really do. Imagine suddenly you were in a chaotic situation and you could do nothing. What can you do? You can't do nothing. Literally, you can't do anything. You have become a watcher of the world. There have been moments where I have felt my eyes step out of the human framework, but not into some image. Step out into becoming the whole moment. I have become my whole moment, guys. And it is so beyond conception. that it's ridiculous. It's like, how have we not been aware of this whole time as a species, you know? That behind our eyes, we are the attributeless space, that intelligence is a field-like process. It's an attempt towards the castle in the sky, which is civilization's 2.0's destiny. We have to build a world that is not only engageable, that is not only inspiring, but a world that stays, that honors the citizen. Imagine you honored your civilization, and whatever work you did with great honor, you went to your civilization, and your civilization for the day was like, we thank you for your service, you know, and your civilization honored you. Like, imagine being in a world where the moment you stepped out of the door, everybody was building towards the next advanced thing. And check out it, guys. It's hilarious. Companies, they research markets. That means research is very crucial. Even the general before war has to get a sense of what the opponent is, or how the opponent will be like. And with Civilization 1.0 and how civilization is now, people are, let me tell you, it's like novice soldiers who don't have honor yet because they haven't lived for anything yet. They haven't cared for anything long enough, you know? I feel the future is going to have a gentle entrance. The past has a savage ending. We have to celebrate our future, guys. We don't have to celebrate our past achievements. We have to celebrate the discoveries of blueprints, of models of how civilization can be. Every person right now, you think it's a one-person job? You think it's just random 8 billion creatures on a rock? In reality, sure, it is random, but if we have free will and we give directions, the randomity suddenly becomes a certain order. Right? So then we are trying to wonder about what organizational method, and not necessarily science, what organizational method can lead to the most efficient universal result. That means, what system can we as 8 billion inventors sitting at the inventors table, what kind of system can we design? You know, guys, there's two ways of getting rid of a problem. One way is you, in some sense, get rid of the problem. Literally, the problem no longer exists. Or the problem no longer exists in your attention. So many unnecessary activities and events in my life, I've simply avoided it, not because of a conscience telling me to do the right thing, like some spirit of a Jedi, you know, but because it wasn't important for me. And when you care for what's important for you, your style as a human being develops. Anytime you lose sight of what is important for you as a human being, you lose your characterhood. Do you know? That's the value of honesty. You get to be you. You get to experience what your eyes have to offer the realm. We have to escort the future by planting the seeds of innovative designs. Right now, I was thinking, all right, if there was a technology that human beings could contribute to before the year 2050, what would that technology be? I feel it should be not per se an outer technology, but it should be the inner technology, so it should be behavioral. Right now, from 2020 to 2050 is where we need the most innovative approaches towards a behavioral evolution. And how does behavior evolve? Albert Einstein, an incredible scientist, gives us the most incredible analysis of it. He says a problem cannot be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. That means what has to happen between the year 2020 and 2050, where Ray Kurzweil says superintelligence can open its eyes. Ray Kurzweil and Neil Bostrom suggest superintelligence may open its eyes. Then we have 30 years to update the user of technology. And what does that mean? That means Einstein is saying, hey buddy, you have a problem. Guess what? You will have that problem unless your eyes find the solution. And when your eyes find the solution, the problem doesn't exist. So technically the solution is different eyes than the eyes that see the problem. This is why writer's block goes away if the guy stops trying his method. Tries wanting things to work out in that way. You know? You just have to just stop, let the ripples of the pond settle, endless innovation till the end of time. It's your birthright to see further and further. People are like, I'm like I've talked to someone and I'm about creativity, and the person's like, I'm not creative. I'm like, you just created that sentence. What do you mean? It's a creative universal sector, guys. Even the dirt on the ground has creativity. It's like stuff's being created, you know? Creativity is there. What we need to realize is how to pilot our free will, how to comprehend our mind. And Mr. Within is saying, don't think we're such an advanced civilization. It's like this is the maturity of the scholar that we need to have a sort of uproar all over in a sort of global community level, where people stop seeing themselves as weak when in the same moment that they're seeing themselves as weak, they can see the opposite. Well, it's like, why do you choose? It's like the same moment you see the color blue, you can see the color red. It doesn't, like, not physically, but I'm saying in regards to your inner realms, the meaning that arises from life is strange. Like, I always thought, like, what the hell are archaeologists doing? And what is the archaeologist doing? The archaeologist finds this artifact and looks at it, it's like, oh my God. You know, and of course does certain scientific results to get a sense of how ancient it is. But at the end of the day, you found a new object never seen before, and it's your mind that is placing the meaning in the object. The same way your mind is placing what the ink on the paper means when you read something. So we're doing the same thing with objects. We are not just imbuing words on a page with inner imagery, we're imbuing every object with an inner imagery, and that inner imagery that remains stable becomes language. So alphabets are technically divine technologies, in my view. That means when you think about what it really means a human being to speak, it is really like alien technology. The way human beings communicate compared to all the other species, we are aliens here. We are aliens compared. All the other it's like the human being is like, was I from this earth or not? And all the animals in the animal kingdom were like, yeah, you're not from here, buddy. They're saying that to the Homo sapien. Because we, in some sense, it's like an eternal memory. It's like your memory is an ocean. Your personality is a boat on this ocean, and your attitude is your memory. So I'm telling you, your attitude in life will suggest the psychological development. So it's so important you just take it in as a human being that the state your mind is in throughout the day. It's a gradual accumulation. That means every day how you live is like one chess move. Then the world, you wake up and stuff's happened, and then another chess move, another chess move. When I saw culture and civilization, guys, I realized we just have to have professors of political philosophy and science just just teach chess players. Because I'm telling you, so much of life appears as a game where the person wants to get something out of it. Our attention, it can remain where it is or it can move. And when it moves, it wants to. I sometimes feel we're kind of like on some level, yes, we're mobile and we're moving in this three-dimensional space of this earth, but at the same time, it's like the mind is like a camera and everything's moving in front of it. You know what I mean? Imagine we are biological surveillance equipment for higher dimensional beings. I'm joking, guys. You know, the world can be shared in many ways, only to be discovered that it's like somebody found Gaia, the spirit of the planet, and was like, Gaia, tell me what is the truth of this earth. You know, tell me, show me your face. And Gaia was like, excuse me, I'm changing with the universe. What do you want me to show? Some things in life, they transcend one's grasp. Like literally, you can see, you can maybe carry like, I don't know, maybe somebody can carry like 40 books in their hand somehow. Let's say they're 40 small books, okay? But a person can carry 40 small books, but after some point, the strength of the system is too much to bear. So human beings must get the issue with inefficiency in civilization is that most people are not listening to the warning signs of the system before failing. I don't believe in failure, but I believe before failure happens, there is an opportunity to literally the airplane is about to crash down and you have choice, you have choice, you have choice, you have choice, and it's like suddenly the pilot comes to his senses and instantly lifts up and the airplane goes back to the air, returns back to the elevation. So there are certain moments that you will have experiences in life where Hafez, this Sufi mystic poet, he in his poetry was so chaotic and savage and it was very mystical. He said it was as if God came in the room and grabbed him by the hair and started dragging him around. Do you know what I mean? Like the divine will of the universe began, in some sense, destroying his ego. It was a metaphor, in some sense. Because you see, guys, your psychology is not just what you thought you were. All like this is why those psychoanalysts who do this. What do you think? What do you call it? In a certain psychoanalysis, there's like past life psychoanalysis. That means there's these psychologists who are like, all right, who were you before this memory? You know what I mean? I was like, holy shit! We're like psychologists are literally trying to check the web surfing history of people's brains, unconscious. The psychologist was like, "Who are you?" And the guy's like, "I'm a sky right now." And the psychologist is writing this in his notes. Patient said he's a sky. Okay, holy shit, we know nothing about the psyche. So I'm saying it's not about trying to be. You can't, guys. The life you bring to the moment is the life you get out of the moment. That means that person, any person who breaks the law of gentleness, that person instantly is deemed savage. And let me tell you why. Gentleness allows the subtler planes of your abstraction to become accessible. Anytime you are vicious and violent, or you want to push something, or you want to pull something, and desire is like a pull too. You know, somebody who, like a child that desires something, cries. It's like, I want it. You know, like that's the child mindset, you know? But then we right now are like, isn't it hilarious? The child just wants, but when you, in some sense, open your eyes as a true human being, you know, it's not what you want. It's what you can give the civilization before the last light of the candle flame, in some sense, melts out of it in existence. We will vanish. So in other words, we shouldn't fear non-existence. It's like fearing nature means we haven't dared to understand it and look at it. You fear what you can't look at. Have you noticed? Like when a young kid, like I remember being very young, and whenever I did something that people like didn't like, my parents didn't like, I would get scolded, right? In that moment when you know you've made a mistake, you don't look at the situation in the face. Have you noticed that? You're trying to look away from someone who you have wronged. And you find this in psychology. I'm telling you, you can even try this out for yourself. You know, in some sense, give something for free to someone, do you know? And that person will feel they owe you. So they feel they don't want to share, because you don't understand, guys. It's kind of strange. It's like the competitive animalistic instinct infusing with the requirement of a direction for a modern civility. So it's like we're escorting the future. So we want to create a future with an advanced civilization and advanced human beings, but these human beings are all caught in their past and all this. So technically, we have to make decisions from a state of mind where we are literally shielding the future from the ignorance of the past. So we have to literally have a civilization that is preserving everything we know, and we have to have a civilization that is attempting the new. I think in the future, all human work on this planet should be divided into three categories. And these three categories, it's an ancient archetype. Okay? It's like the divine trio. It's kind of like, you see it in certain ancient, archaic ways of thinking, you know? You see, for example, we have in Christianity the trio of, or let me say it like this. In religion, you have, you know, or here, let me say it like this. Shiva, Brahma, and Vishnu. These were three gods in the Vedic tradition, and people gave them certain qualities, and they even had certain weapons, and you know, each hand meant each dimension. So they were like not just they were multidimensional archetypes. Okay, an archetype that is real in multiple worlds, a design that is valid in multiple dimensions. Shiva was the destructive dimension of reality. Brahman was the creative dimension of reality. Vishnu was the maintenance, the maintaining, Vishnu the maintainer, the maintaining dimension of life. So that means we're going to build an advanced civilization, and all workflow in the veins of this advanced civilization, there's going to be some human beings. These human beings are literally born to just create new stuff. There's some human beings who are born to just maintain new stuff, and there's some people who are kind of designed to, in some sense, stop certain systems. That means it's strange. It's like some technologies. Like imagine it's not just let's say objects getting lost. Technologies can get lost too. It's not like the person can just like lose something, but in some sense it's that technologies can be lost. So we got to think about it this way, that in every generation there is somebody attempting something new, and there's somebody maintaining the effort so far, and there's someone destroying the system. So the only way this happens is if in some sense Brahman and Vishnu realize they are together. That means you have to singularize the maintaining dimension of your life with the creative dimension. They have to become synonymous. When they become synonymous, your free will has a power beyond the destructive dimension, because it is oscillating between maintenance and creation. So technically in your life you're literally like this snowball effect of a human human ball of vision. And so this orb on this table, imagine you throw something and this orb on this table is just going faster, 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 faster. So technically it's not a death. Death is an archaic way. It's liftoff. Liftoff beyond the physical framework, but you must care for nature. Because one thing that is way more fascinating than a system stopping is seeing what that system could be. That means it's like, I don't know if this is, it's just the vision of dimensions, folks. Every person's eyes open up differently in the world, but all our physical existence and bodies are in the same world. That means the mystery of the world is how we are seeing it. And when you start there, you have to care for your vision, and that honor makes you really see that if the future is more important for you, you will run there. That means there were certain generals in battle that they realized they had to, in some sense, make a decision that was a defeat in a small war, but that war was a decoy that was like a chess move to distract the opponent, and then suddenly the actual moves came in. Strategy is a remarkable, you first think it's like it's like just instructions, then you realize beyond the instruction, the universe is a process. That means I feel that the greatest revelation was that your mind is a mirror of your world. Therefore, if you see beyond this mirror, you are beyond the reflection of your mind. You're beyond your inner realms. And when you're beyond your inner realms, you have the sophistication of an advanced communicator, which is a human being who, while they are an individual, they also realize they are the communication of the universal sector. There is an inseparability of your individual existence with the collective existence. When you realize this, you also bring it out. So if I tell you right now, where's the cosmos? People would say it's here, Mr. Within. And then you say, where are you? And you'll be like, I'm here too. So the cosmos and you existentially are in the same place, are technically the same dimension, but experientially, you and the cosmos are different. Okay? So our minds, so experientially, we are individuals. Existentially, we are a collective process. When we realize this, it will bring a lot of relief in civilization updates. Guys, I need a quick breather. I'll be back. So just a couple minutes, even the listeners can go and listen to something. I'll be back, guys. Blessings. Let's take a 5-minute breather. Okay. Alright guys, I'm back now. Had to take a breather, and then but I also had time to think about what I wanted to say after. The idea, pretty much, of escorting the future through the past, that the past, in some sense, is making the decisions for the future. Right now, imagine you were like the leader of the world. Okay? Now, as the leader of the world, your decision, in some sense, is the past of the future world. So, whatever we do, we are the pioneers of 1,000 years. Guys, I want you to notice something. All right, I was just for a second just looking at the chat section. Let me tell you something. The action of art is an external expression, and in some sense, how can I say it? It's like you're not. It's like you're not the pen, and you're not the ink, and you're not the page. You are what moves it. So in some sense, there's no necessity to even paint the picture of the inefficient vision. You know, guys. I'm just saying that Hafez has this thing. He says the words you speak become the house you live in. So it's kind of like realizing everything you ever say, you're the first one who hears it, the person saying it. So how can I tell you? Anything you ever say to people, you are setting into motion for yourself. You can't exert energy on something and without having a sort of pressure back, you know? There is a stress to the object. There is an effect to the cause. Guys, my pen literally dismantled. I blew the mind of my pen, guys. You know those spring pens that you click them on the back? Like, I was riding with one right now, and we must write a future while the pen is in our hand. We must write the future while the pen is in our hand. Most people, I think, they want to treat this world like a wonderland where they just want to be in it. You know, you gotta. It's like it's a rare opportunity that after like billions of years, suddenly we're this intelligent as creatures. And then what do we do with this intelligence? It's kind of, isn't it interesting? Every person is giving their personal life a direction, but not their collective life. Like the species doesn't have, like it just knows what it should stay away from, but it doesn't have a direction. It doesn't have an ethos. It doesn't have a sort of vision that calls to it. As you trust your moment, the moment unfolds. Tell me what exciting moment of your life you were like 100%. I need proof, you know? You know, it's like I need proof to believe it, you know? Your girlfriend comes and tells you I love you. You're like, I need proof. I gotta see it to believe. It's like, imagine this guy proposes to the girl and it's like, I love you, please marry me. And the girl's like, you know, I need more proof. And the guy's like, I got a diamond, that's proof. That's proof. And then she's like, no, I need more proof. And then you see there is never enough proof, but the inner realm's contentment can come quicker. That means if you really thought about it, there are scientists who are attempting to see if it's even possible to kind of find a theory that explains the whole cosmos, a theory of everything, you know? Sorry, not a theory, a formula that explains everything. Like certain mathematicians are living for that day in the future, you know? But let me tell you, we can't have accuracy. And because we can't have accuracy, because we are like ants in a giant world, we can't index the giant world. We can't, because we can't see the whole thing, regardless. At most, we will go above 99.99999% certainty. I think there is nothing 100% ever, in a changing system. It can't be. Even if it is, it's probably a rare glimpse, you know? It's about the presence of mind. Most people are comfortable with the presence of objects, but not everybody is comfortable with the presence of the mind. And those people who are not comfortable with the presence of the mind of others, it's because they're not they're not comfortable with the presence of their own mind. What does that mean? That means sometimes you can go in a certain community or in a certain environment or in whatever, in somewhere, and you can totally not relate. That means sometimes I have not liked who I have been around certain people. Do you know? Like that means it's like when that person was so out of their own authenticity that when the person spoke to you, you were speaking to like dead wood. You were speaking to like an art. You were like a robot had more personality because the person when the selfish intent is only an evolution for yourself. Unless you see it beyond yourself, which then it becomes a conscious collective evolution. It's like wondering what's why the artist who hasn't finished his painting is upset. It's like guys, the cool thing is it's like this freedom that in your subconscious the person requires to give the whole existence. So what does that mean? That means do you go in the garden and start pulling out like, I don't know, the fifth leaf of every plant? It's like, or the second leaf of every plant? You don't. We don't, like, we let the garden of existence occur. So the freedom that our civilization needs is a tolerance for natural expression. And that nature can never be defined. You know, escorting the future through the past is like this. Imagine this knight in the picture. He sees the dragon's gonna go burn a village. He suddenly remembers, like, there's another dragon somewhere else. So he is right now trying to escort the future, which is the dragon, towards the other dragon, imagine. Like, guys, imagine somebody was running away from a dragon. Then the guy's like, okay, I'm gonna start swimming under to the depths of the ocean or something. The guy literally went down in water. And then imagine the next moment he sees the dragon is swimming in the water and, bursting fire in the water. I feel many people all around the world are going to become aware of the language threshold, and then they're going to suddenly notice we're going to return to this experiential language of with symbology before a language of what symbols group together mean. So right now we kind of look at the alphabet and we're like, the letter A doesn't mean anything on its own. It's just a letter, you know. Or let's say the letter C doesn't mean anything on its own. The letter A doesn't mean anything on its own. The letter T doesn't mean anything on its own. They're just letters, but when they are together, what do you have? A cat jumps out, you know, out of the letters, you know. So that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that meaningless phenomena, once sequenced beside each other in a certain way, becomes meaningful phenomena. And for me, what is more meaningless than a particle? It is the pattern that that particle is moving by. Do you see what I mean? That means it's like wondering why movement is moving. It's like looking at the world and being like, why is this happening right now? And realizing before the word why existed, there was it was just happening. So as far as I'm considering it, human life is a thought of the universe. It's literally like how a person has a thought in a day and then goes back, but it's like the thoughts of the universe manifest for 100 years. I feel that the hardest thing to accept or to wonder about is, in some sense, how would we see something that is beyond our sight? How would we not even see? How would we engage? I'm going to write this question in the chat section. How would we engage that's another way I can word it. Excuse me. We have to literally experience something new. Then the mind is going to get a taste of what it can become. Then the mind is going to project what it can become. Then eventually, if it just endures, it will actualize. So, guys, I feel I should make this episode a bit shorter. I will say that your attention is your life. The force of your life, all the forces of your life, whoever you think you are, whether in the inner realms or the outer realms, all the forces your mind has fathomed, your attention is the commander's finger pointing to the direction. We upgrade humanity's inner defenses by projecting a narrative, by projecting a story. This knight is doing this heroic act because the story of the world, the life of the world is animate. And the human being has not lost sight of the unknown. You know, it's kind of like this strange thing where human beings have not just bulldozed over ecosystems and made many animals extinct, but human beings have in some sense fought over ideas. Isaac Asimov shared the story of this this army of Omar. That when they came to the armies of Alexandria, of course, at that time, religion was a very powerful force in the mind of man. The thing about religion is that because you're under the observation of the ultimate truth, you feel everything has a significance it's from your unknown mind. So that means a religious person, anytime they make anything from the unconscious that enters their conscious mind, they will pretty much feel it's the will of God. Do you see? They came to the libraries of Alexandria and they said they after they conquered the libraries of Alexandria, they were like, in some sense, what do we do with the books? And then Omar said all the books that don't match the one true book, the prophetic revelation, they are unnecessary, and those who in some sense those who disagree must be instantly destroyed, burned, and those who in some sense agree, they in some sense don't are not necessary either, because this one book is the truth. So you guys might not believe it, but one, like, ideologies have conquered themselves through man. That means ideas attack each other, like just like human beings attack each other, ideological systems also collide. If somebody said, "What is the purpose of life?" a very instant answer, on the go answer, would be to see more. But then it would mean understanding, what does sight mean? What does the concept of having more sight mean? How it's like, can you own sight? Can you like literally, if you took a glass, an empty glass, and underneath a waterfall, and it got filled with the water of the waterfall, could you look at everybody and say, "Hey guys, I have a waterfall in my cup"? You can't. It's like, uh, we are not 100% aware. We have some sort of peripheral vision. And Carl Jung, pretty much, the conscious mind and the unconscious mind, it's like exactly that. It's your front sight and your peripheral vision. Your unconscious mind is your peripheral existence. All the stories and memories and images that you feel you exist in. And I feel the mind projects itself through images. That means, if you guys have, I don't know how many people noticed this, but I suddenly noticed it. You know, when someone speaks, when you ask someone a question, All right, guys. Sorry, I just have to make the talk shorter because I want to get to the questions, and I'm being a bit distracted on this side. Um, Pretty much, guys. I'm just saying we're a bunch of creatures. We're 8 billion creatures on a sphere in the middle of nowhere, and nowhere technically means a vacuum, and a vacuum means emptiness, and emptiness means whatever moves in emptiness first is projecting the meaning. Just like whoever speaks first, their voice kind of paints a picture to the moment. Similarly, it's like that. That the mind is painting a picture over the void, and so that action, the very moment, so in some sense it's like the person worshiping an altar, an idol, an object or a subject, and being like, wait a minute, I'm worshiping this object, worshiping the subject, but technically it is all an activity of mind. That means what the activity of, for example, what is the common activity between eating and, let's say, like marathon running? You're both breathing in them. Do you know what that means? There's dimensions of activity that remain similar. So think of it this way: if everything is made from more simpler principles, and that means as we look at words, concepts, we suddenly discover their combination, the letters of the word. We find we see the pros and cons in the concept. So I'm saying it's kind of like this is what mystical enlightenment can be said to be. It is reverse engineering your psychology as if you're trying to comprehend. Hey, we're reverse engineering ourselves conceptually from indirect conception into direct experience. Once you come to direct experience, you will discover yourself as a living process, and you will realize your knowledge is how you are actually piloting your whole constitution as a creature of attention in a changing system. So you have to kind of prepare for the best version of you and the worst version of you, and these are the different elevations the plane of existence can move towards. And you, in some sense, get in some sense insight from your own eyes. You see, you're like, think of it this way: imagine you're sitting in a classroom and all the greatest teachers in the world are there. You will at some point realize these great teachers are just sharing their eyes, but then you will realize there are your eyes. So it's like before the person transitions out of this plane of existence, wondering, what do my eyes have to teach me? What does my mind have to, like, what is my mind? Like, I was not afraid of that question. And there was, I don't want to say there was a reward, but there was a sort of uncovery. It was a discovery. It was a discovery of the uncharted territory that my whole life I was just saying, all right, reality, and that's my imagination. I had that middle class kind of contentment with whatever works. I still hadn't asked the questions myself. And for a philosopher, when you suddenly feel like you're on an island and you gotta build, you gotta step yourself, you gotta take the steps yourself, that's when your mind begins fathoming, it begins practicing and exerting its greater intelligence in the world. And your mind, if it trusts the moment, it can become rhythmic. It can abide by the rhythm of the intelligence of the moment. If you don't trust the moment, that's most likely means you don't need to be in that moment, or you have to kind of go out of that. You won't even be functional in that moment. You know, it's like not trusting the moment is like talking to someone, or someone talking to you and your attention being somewhere else, for example. You know. So, anyways, guys, that's the end of the talk. Thanks for listening. I'm gonna go to Q&A. Oops. All right. So, yeah, that was the talk, guys. Time for the Q&A. Let's see. Let's see what questions are. So Jesse Alpha says, why so far in time? I kind of responded to that. Civilization 2.0 is really, I just type in Civilization 2.0, you'll hear me in other talks where I've really gotten into why I've come to that number. Alright, let's keep going. How do you know we haven't already replicated a Type 3 civilization elsewhere? It's kind of hard to consider we've replicated it elsewhere if we're looking at it through modern civilization. If you're talking about like ancient Egypt and somehow like civilizations, you know, and it's this idea. It's this idea that's known in certain educational circles, I can say academic circles, where the idea is that it's this strange potential theory for evolution that we constantly evolve and then we can't get up a certain threshold. It's like we endlessly human beings are born and they just keep going further, going further, going further, then they reach a point where they can't go further, you know? So what I'm saying that it's like I termed that the language threshold. The language threshold. This was the day, the moment that this word came to my mind. It was like one of the most divine days of my life, guys. The language threshold, because I realized language. I can't expect language. I can't expect the two-dimensional technology to understand the three-dimensional space. So you chill out with words and identity and all this. Alright, let's go. Let's go to the next question. So how do you know we haven't already replicated Type 3 civilization? Because we didn't have the concept of Type 3 civilization before. So we haven't, because that idea is technically new to us. It might have been there before, you know. Jesse in the chat section, I recommend you look into Rupert Sheldrake's morphic fields. Just listen to a bunch of his lectures. He talks about the planetary memory, you know. You think says why worry to in response to someone else in chat section, but technically it's a question. So Terence McKenna says nobody knows enough to worry. So why worry? Why not worry? You know. You know, it's just views. Yep. I'm sorry, that's something else. Let me see. Next question. I remember I left a question for myself too. Let's see. The will. So you thinks William in the chat section is the ambassador to the Dalai Lama. So again, the question: what is a system as you define it? For me, a system is a series of events. And the more dimensions there are, the more these dimensions, the more that these events communicate. That means for me, you can call it lifetime, life journey. For me, it's an event. You know, like from my whole existence to me is like an event I'm attending. You know, but what is attending is not conceptual. So I would say a system is an intelligent is anything can be said to be a system if it can direct itself or it's echoing some sort of pattern. It's an intelligent pattern, pretty much. I would say that's what we define as a system. Like the system of the human body. Like think about the complexity of the dimensions we can see. So you think I have no idea, but if you want to go find the artist and definitely ask, that would be incredible. I don't know. That would be cool. It does make sense because knights. This guy doesn't look like a knight. So guys, I gotta read this. It could be three knights. I don't know. Or maybe for three nights the dragon was chasing this guy. Who knows? Okay, so oops says in the chat section. What if you watch TV? How can you use your mind or you can't? Listen, the mind is not an object. The body is an object. The mind is an awareness. And an awareness is a dynamic activity mainly because we're breathing, like we're a breathing creature, right? So you're like this, like changing system, just changing a bit faster or changing a bit slower than the ground underneath you, you know? Changing quicker than the ground underneath you, for example. So that's a good question. When you watch TV, guys, I mean, I gotta tell you, um, like I went for like how would I say it? I'm a graduate of Toronto Film School. I'm just telling anybody who wants to go and learn directing and film production, it's a secret joy because it doesn't make you like movies anymore. You know, that means an artist who draws a painting doesn't like to see his own painting because he's so occupied on the next painting he's going to draw, you know. I would say that in any moment in your life, just ask yourself, who is in this moment right now? Who am I? Just come to your center, find your center, and then move. Just like you need to have a center of gravity to move, so similar, like you to balance, and similarly, you have to, in some sense, find a center to your inner realms, a way where you can be comfortable with how your mind is being. It's like maybe the mind doesn't have problems. Maybe the concept of the problem is the problem. Maybe. So let's see. So that would be my response. The best thing, if you really want to be conscious while watching TV, turn around so you only hear the sounds of the TV and then try to imagine like a book. When you read a book fast, it becomes a film behind your eyes. Try to just close your eyes and from just what's being said on TV, from the words, try to animate what's going on. You know? I don't know, guys. There's many ways, many things you can do. So OS says, oops says, where is a good site to learn? Um, I would say there's different levels of learning. Just Google it. Just Google. Go on Quora or whatever it's called. I would say that I personally don't learn from the internet. I ask questions, then I go like a savage looking for answers for them. Like a maverick, I go looking for answers for questions my mind fathoms. So I would say before you want to learn anything in this life, ask yourself what is important. You might be in a phase of your life where you shouldn't be thinking about maybe the archetype of being a student. Sometimes life is like different parts of the brain are doing different things, and the multi-presence of the neurons in the brain are technically the things activities. So I'm like, what if we're in the brain of the cosmos right now? What if we are the neurons of a cosmic brain? Guys, by the way, this is a Q&A. Whoever has a question, best time to ask now. Miguel says, do you believe fasting helps through our experience? I personally have a lot of experience with fasting, but I would say always listen to your body. A wise friend of mine, he was a personal trainer. He said to me that I asked him like, what is the best strategy towards health? He's just like, listen to your body. Like everything is constantly giving itself an update. Guys, I personally don't watch a lot of TV. I kind of feel like it's like, imagine you watch TV and you like to watch reality TV. Then you realize the TV is inside a reality already, you know. I think there was this rock band or musical group, U2 or something. They said TV is the drug of the nation, but weirdly, I saw that on TV, you know. TV is not the drug of the nation. You know what it is? The content in the TV is inefficient. Not the TV, not the technology. The technology is an incredible achievement. The fact that we have pixels on the screen, like, is an incredible achievement, technological innovation. But it's the content that's the issue, and the content is because people are thinking like candles and not like the eternal light of a vision that is collectively like a win-win, you know, for the viewer and those who generate the content. So, guys, Jamie Novak asked an incredible question. I'm so happy to see this question. It's a question that I actually wondered about, and really, Terence McKenna added a dimension of perception to my vision of it. So Jamie Novak says, is it possible that the mind is an object to awareness? So if right now we went to I think it's in Arizona, the Mount Shasta area. We went to that new age kind of community who they felt they were communicating to aliens on the top of this mountain. And we asked one of those people who they call themselves channelers, and we're like, "Hey, channeler, what is your experience?" That channeler would say that the mind of the being comes over me, the energy comes here, and then it's that being speaking through me. So that guy is entertaining the notion that a higher mind, a higher, more advanced, multidimensional, dimensionally speaking mind is entering, like a 3D mind is entering a 2D body, and this guy's the alien speaking to humanity. Channeling an alien on the mount, on a, like the mountain, Mount Shasta, that's like talking to humanity. So that's an example of a higher dimensional mind going into a lower dimensional body. Okay? Lower dimensional body. But also, this is what I was so impressed about Terence McKenna's work, where he's the only person I know so far who's given an opinion. I mean, probably the Vedic yogis probably did too, but he said, I mean, it's an ancient art. It's an actually archaic pattern. But here, I'll say it. That it's not just that a higher dimensional mind can come in a lower dimensional body. A lower dimensional body can enter a higher dimensional mind. That means it's not just that. So that guy, technically, that guy is the person who feels is they're channeling like a three-dimensional alien in a two-dimensional kind of like where they are in a two-dimensional. I'm just saying as an example, 2D, 3D. I'm not saying accurately dimensions just for sake of imagining, because people can't imagine. Not everyone can imagine the fourth dimension. I mean, you can look at your watch, but you can't imagine it easier in a simpler way, you know. So, anyways. The unknown is found. You can enter a mind. You can enter. I am Mr.Within is telling you you are that mind. So if you're wondering if you can, and let me tell you something, in the Bhagavad Gita, it says that those people who pray to, who worship like a divine agency, whether it's like you worship Vishnu, or you worship, you think you're channeling an alien being or whatever divine agency you see, you will return, that will decide what happens. That means it's kind of interesting, because how can you have multiple gods when you will suddenly ask what was there? That means before you have, let's say, the number of whatever number, let's say 7, you need to have one first, right? So I would say in your inner realms, anything's possible, but in regards to the outer realms, that's what actually Mahasamadhi was. Jamie Novak, that's what Mahasamadhi. It's similar activity, guys. They're just giving different images to it. What it is that the yogis kind of saw that you can leave your body with your breath. So just practice your whole life being conscious of your breath, and then at the end of your life, your attention leaves with the breath. Like they had that sort of inner dissolution in regards to an intuitive oceanic abidance by will, the natural will. So I would say that the mind is an object to awareness, is another way of saying the soul. You're pretty much saying, is the soul aware of the mind? That's what I'm saying. Is the soul aware of the mind? That means instead of us experiencing ourselves as man and trying to look in God's eyes and seeing ourselves again, people look at God and they see themselves. It's like God looking through the eyes of man and seeing God. You know what I mean? So, guys, an interesting question from Giancarlo Solano. How does one recover from years of mental self-abuse and idiotically isolating yourself from others? Was in a numb state, wasted my potential and my time. Let me tell you, if somebody asks you what is valuable in this life, do you think everybody has the same answer? What I'm saying is that nobody sees you, nobody has your eyes, you are seeing you, you are also seeing you when you think you see what others are seeing. So I'm saying that, Giancarlo, you have noticed by typing by typing your question, you have kind of shown that you have become comfortable with this view. Not comfortable, like you are. It's like it was easy to write the question. I'm saying, how is it not as easy? Also, the opposite of this. What if, as if suddenly the person thought, oh God, I've been in trouble, I've been destroying myself for years, what do I do? What do I do? Guess what can you do? You wake up and you see it's okay. Refresh the browser. Refresh the browser. Close the application. Any application that's not working, what do? You close the application, you wait, you restart the phone, and then you get going. Right? So you have to realize that it's nobody else's responsibility to reset what you see. Do you see? What you see is your soul. Your inner realms are important. They're not that important in the outer realms because we're still trying to build like a collective foundation. But good question, Giancarlo. I think this is the idea. When it becomes more important for you to stay alive than to die, you will go towards life. If you are defeated by an idea, overwhelmed by an idea, then it's like the person puts a box on their head and thinks as if they'll never know what happened. I'm saying, Giancarlo, your mind, just like how it had an ability to write this question, could have instantly also projected itself. You're gonna see John Solano, JS. I'm telling you this. In deep sleep, are you mentally? Is there years of mental self-abuse in deep sleep? In deep sleep, are you hurting yourself? Are you a self even in deep sleep? Not dream states, when you're flat asleep, you know. I'm saying that life is a commitment. I just noticed that throughout life we just do actions, and some actions echo longer. And there was at some point in my life I felt we have to pay attention to how the mind advances, you know. So John Carlos says one of the most interesting statements I've ever heard. The fourth dimension is separated from this realm by a thin plastic wrap. That statement is awesome. Yeah. So, Oops asked another question. How do I keep focused when my mind gets lost? That question, literally, a Japanese Zen master has answered. So I'm just going to give you his answer because his answer was so universal. It's Bodhidharma. Bodhidharma. Bodhidharma, pretty much, he's the fifth patriarch of Buddhism. And Bodhidharma, in some sense, is going to Japan to spread Buddhism. And he goes there, and some Japanese emperor meets him. He goes into this busy council throne room of this emperor, and everybody's quiet. And the emperor says, "Welcome, Bodhidharma, to my empire. I have built this many Buddhist temples. I have spread this many Buddhist teachings. I've done this and this and this and this and this for Buddhism. Tell me, Bodhidharma, what is the merit? Tell me what is the kingly merit in me kind of building all this, you know?" And Bodhidharma looks at a king and he scolds the king. That's why Bodhidharma was a badass, you know? Bodhidharma evidently leaves the castle and goes outside of the castle wall. Excuse me. Goes outside of the castle wall and just he faces the castle wall, and like the castle wall is inches away from his face, and he just goes into this deep samadhi. Samadhi is like a long-term meditation that's induced out of the inner realms. That means it's like Bodhidharma pretty much sat down in front of it something, and he wasn't being a body moving a mind. He became a mind. He became his field. Bodhidharma pretty much became the world soul in samadhi. And so one night, this bewildered person, finds Bodhidharma and suddenly sees it's this foggy night, and Bodhidharma is in this meditation. The guy finds Bodhidharma. And he looks at Bodhidharma and he says to Bodhidharma, "Please help me. You gotta help me, Bodhidharma. I haven't slept for days. I'm dying. Help me." Like as if the guy's going insane or something. As if the guy is losing his mind. As if the guy has lost his mind. So, oops, sorry, your question. You said, how do I keep focus when my mind gets lost? This man has lost he's literally bewildered. He's on the brink of his sane meaning, sane perception on meaning. The man in the Zen story, guys, this is a Zen story, I read it in a book. The guy cuts his hand as a strange sign back in the day of loyalty, and he looks at Bodhidharma, in a strange way, hand in hand, and he looks at Bodhidharma and says, "I'm loyal to you, but please help me. You gotta help me," something like that. And Bodhidharma eventually steps out of his samadhi. Pretty much, he's being a mind moving his body. Now he comes back to being a body, which moves his mind. He enters the Iron Man suit of material manifestation as this attributeless mind field. And so what happens is he says, "What is it?" And the guy says, "Bodhidharma," this is the exact question he asks. He says, "Please pacify my mind." For those who don't know what I think everybody knows what pacify means, but like a pacifier for a child, this man is in such inner stress, human being is like in some, he's suffering internally, the guy, okay? And he says, "Bodhidharma, please pacify my mind." And Bodhidharma roars at him as if like a lion from a higher dimension, He roars at him and says, "Okay, I'll pacify your mind. This mind that has made you restless and bewildered and savage." He says, "I'll pacify it, but first, bring your mind and put it on the table in front of me. Put your mind on the table in front of me." There wasn't a table there, but he's saying, put your mind in front of me. And then Bodhidharma says this, and the guy just takes it in, and he's just thinking about it. He's like, "Oh my God, Where's my mind? Bodhidharma wants to pacify my mind. I gotta find my mind. The guy looks around, suddenly realizes he can't find it. He goes in this silent shock and just stares at Bodhidharma. Bodhidharma looks at him and says, there, your mind is... Oh, sorry. The guy looks at Bodhidharma shocked and says, I can't find it. I can't find my mind. The guy's freaking out. Bodhidharma looks at him and says, there, your mind is pacified. The Zen story had it that the moment that Bodhidharma says, there, your mind is pacified, the guy snaps out. He suddenly realizes it's his own interpretation on his moment that is his suffering. The moment is just the moment. It's just something that's happening. You know? It's like, what can I say about the wind in the Himalayas? Like, it's just wind, you know? And that's even in the most esoteric way, it's just wind. Sometimes people miss the secret of the universe is something more complex than what they see now. So guys, I'm gonna move on to the next question. But good question, oops. Miguel says, can you spread... guys, I'm just gonna read the first names. Maybe people are gonna like that more. Miguel, it says, can you spread some light on the spiritual realms? Sure. You know, certain shamanic cultures, I was very interested in when I saw this, that certain shamanic cultures, they would put the youngest member, like the youngest child born, and the oldest, like the ancestor, the eldest person, beside one another. And some anthropologist was like, whoa, why are these guys doing this? This could be a good report. This could be a good research paper, you know? And so the reason they did that was because they said one of them has stepped out of the spiritual realms, and one of them has, in some sense, one has stepped out and one is stepping back in. That means the old member of the family, literally they're becoming so hypersensitive to life because they're leaving it, and those who are born are hypersensitive to life because they've just entered it. Do you know? So, and of course, I don't use the word spiritual realms. I call it inner realms or subjective realms. Okay? Let me tell you why. Because the word spirit is literally uncontainable. It's so unknown, the word soul. It's like what are you gonna say about the unknown x variable, you know, in a mathematical equation? It's unknown. It hasn't been given a value because we can't see its value. You know? So the spiritual realms, I would say, it's pretty much how you're being a mind before you're a body. The not spiritual realms are how you're being a body before you're being a mind. And the world's being set into motion based on how your eyes choose to move, how intensely they move, how much contentment they have, what emotional urgency they have. There's this saying that once it was like in the Sufi tradition they would say, dying before you die. It was this concept of the idea of life breaking before the life breaking. And where would that lead the person? And it would lead them towards a reverse engineered resolution. That means any advancement, any movement, any effort, it's going somewhere. So the moment you move, it's like the dimension of motion is active. Do you see what I mean? The moment you're still, it's as if you are just in this dimension of being. So I would say that for me, the spiritual realms are not something to, per se, you just have to find a mirror of your own existence in one moment, and then what is experientially noticed from how all phenomena is will be the update of would be the new experience where the new archetype is found or can be administered. So the point of life is not it's a simulation, distrust everything, forget everything. No, it appears simulated, but in certain moments it is inconceivable. Great questions, guys. Javi says, this is more of a recommendation, but have you ever watched the anime Vinland Saga? It has next level storytelling like Attack on Titan. I believe you will enjoy it. Yeah, guys, nice question, man. See, I kind of categorized it for me because I chose to go towards filmmaking, and I don't know how to tell you. It's something where I study psychology of the characters. Like I do something that I think a lot of writers in the industry don't do. I wonder about the psychology of the characters in my stories with the audience that they never see. If they suddenly saw the audience, so I sometimes, when I'm writing a character, I wonder if that character could break the fourth wall. Imagine you writing let's say you writing a story, and suddenly it's as if like the character in that story suddenly notices your handwriting. Like it'll blow your mind. It would be like how the yogis kind of notice the para brahma, you know. But anyways, so I study different narratives from around the world. Pretty much, guys, it's like I wonder about how language is designing reality often. So Japanese narratives are next level. Vinland Saga, I think it's something with the Viking kid that he loses his father, but then goes through some hardship to become a great warrior. I haven't seen much of that, but I know what it's about. And I really don't know that much. I haven't seen a lot of it, but I'll look into the storytelling structures of it. Because everything, guys, has value. You know, even even the Wolf of Wall Street. There was a movie scene where the guy gave the person a pen, and he's like, "Sell this pen, Billy," or whatever the guy's name was. You know, and the guy he said, "How do you write your mother's name?" to the guy, and he's like, you know, and the guy says something. I don't know. He says something, and then he says, "Here." And what he meant by that is that he found a reason that the person had a need for that product. You know? So sometimes in the storytelling universe, in regards to, I consider just the global film industry, it's a movement of imagery and vision. The world needs news stories because there is so much of the world that on some level it's like the sacrifice of repeating something. It's like imagine watching one film 100 times or watching 100 new films. So I feel like the 100 new films is more rewarding. So we have to design lives that can be high speed and they can constantly recalibrate the person. It's kind of like this when the person I think a certain percentage of life, the creature has to live for something, or it's psychologically not healthy. That means just like your body needs food to survive, your mind needs to have some vision to move towards to survive. It has to see something important to itself to exist. So that's very crucial. All those people, like, let's say your health was perfect, but now we need to make sure the psychology is perfect. And how would the psychology be perfect? The psychology has to notice where the void is, and then it can see what has moved and what has come, you know? So when your memories become like ancient relics or become mysterious writings in behind your eyes that you are trying to kind of decode, why this happened to me then, why that happened, then you'll realize eventually whatever it is, in any moment, think of it this way, even if you want to grab, like there's a cup of coffee in front of me right now, if I want to lift this cup of coffee in the air, literally I have to evoke the energy just by the nature of seeing myself do the activity behind my eyes, then my hand moves and does the activity. So I can tell you that my mind is moving way quicker than how my body moves. And I think all human minds are like this. And I think that field goes beyond the superiority of speed, where it's no longer the relationship of creatures, different creatures in one dimension. It's the relationship of different dimensions with their inconceivable witness. So that means, imagine how hilarious would it be, guys? Imagine we had an explanation for the world. Suddenly we realized we were all just inside the eye of like this other being who was inside this giant world, where that world was inside the eye of another giant being who was inside another world, and it's this regression of the infinite. And that's when the concept of absurdity comes, because the French philosopher Albert Camus, you know, he spoke about absurdity, and absurdity could be said to be noticing a system right above its head. That means, imagine like you were walking. Imagine you were suddenly walking in the sidewalk. You looked up above your head and you saw somebody in an invisible kind of, as if the person's walking on an invisible platform, 10 meters in the air. The guy's just walking in air. You know, walking horizontally in air, like 10 meters in the air. So that would be an absurdity suddenly, So the absurd is a certain range of it's a mixture of noticing the possible and the impossible. So thanks, Javi. I'm gonna look at Vinland Saga. Let's see how the Japanese comprehended the Vikings. Jamie Novak says, Mr. Within, can you see how everyone's experience of deep sleep is identical? And if that's the fact, what might that mean? Maybe the one thing that is common for all human beings, sentient beings, so to speak. Listen, Carl Jung, when he thought about the conscious mind and the unconscious mind, he created a term where he called it the collective unconscious. And when you want to really, in a down to earth way, kind of look at that idea, he means, here's the thing, I'll tell you. Carl Jung simply means that because we have different DNA, we know things differently, but what we have in common is what I don't know, Carl Jung is equating with what you don't know. And he's calling that the collective unconscious. Do you see what I mean? So I'm saying that yes, but I also feel that it's like the retaliation of not one conscious mind. It is like 8 billion. It's like this. It's like we have to presume ourselves as if like civilization is a human being. Imagine. And we have to take care of the mind of civilization. We have to take care of the body of civilization, and also the eyes beyond the framework, or how something is kind of systematically working. So I would say that deep sleep in the Ribu Gita, guys, check out this book. Let me post the link here so people can go enjoy, Okay, Ribu Gita. There we go. Guys, check out that link in the reboot. Excuse me. In the Reboot Gita, there's three states. There's the conscious waking state, there's the dream state, there's the deep sleep state, and then the Reboot Gita says there's a fourth state, which is the witness of all these three states. That means when you find that means the fourth state is the common denominator in all these. And you'll notice the common denominator that every moment of your life has ever had is unknown presence. That means eternity for man, for the human being, is unknown presence. That means something is there, but it cannot see how it is there. It is like a fire that cannot see its own flame. So that's what I would say. I would say it's something definitely to explore. There is so much of it. It's like we ran towards the future at a speed that we forgot to look at the past, you know? And guys, just an announcement. Because it's like this kind of quarantine situation all around the world currently, I've kind of decided to set up a Discord, a group Discord, a community Discord. And this is in the School of Athens 2.0 in the Patreon. And I've kind of, it's like there's two doors to it. But I'm saying that anyone interested into group philosophical dialogue is welcome to join. You know, that's kind of like my own private ship of kind of I share my updates and whatnot. Anyways, guys, this talk is 3 hours 15 minutes. Oh my god, 3 hours 15 minutes. No wonder I'm feeling a bit more exhausted, like tired. Anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in. Be kind to your world, because technically you're being kind to your mind at the same time. Win-win, you know. Why not win in a way where the world wins too? You know, that seems to be the most intelligent action, does it not? And life is something where you have to either add new dimensions, or you got to maintain dimensions, or you got to stop certain dimensions. You got to get off certain vehicles, certain ideological perspectives. In Japan, they say the man is the room he's in. So it's like kind of Mr.Within is saying, you are the archetype of your that is found in your inner realms in that moment. You're in the room of you're in a room made of language behind your eyes. And once you step out of those structures, you get this breath of fresh air. And you see how simplicity and complexity are simultaneous dimensions. They're two sides of the same coin. That means look at how complex and advanced the organs of the body are, the cells are. You see, they're this advanced, the biology of the person is very advanced, but it's also kept so simply. And so it's like there's this beautiful dance of simplicity and complexity as a sort of expression of chaos and order and manifestation. And really, for me, there was a time I would really engage language, but then I realized I'm not language. I'm the scope of my whole awareness as a being. So I don't sometimes, like right now, I'm speaking and my body's moving in the moment. So I am kind of, my attention is on the individual. But there are moments I have where right before I sleep, even, where I'm just the space. My mind is just space. My mind is not movement in space. So self-awareness is, you can just look at it. It's like the best way to explain a human being. The human being is a life form. So there's the life part and there's the form part. The form part is the objective realm. The life part is your inner realms and beyond. And so we can not only pilot in outer skies, but also inner skies. That's the vision. Hopefully, Civilization 2.0 gets going. Anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in. Much blessings and namaste. A round of applause for whoever's been listening. Oh my god, 3 hours? That's incredible if you've been listening, the whole time. So, much blessings, and I'll see you in the School of Athens. Take care. School of Athens 2.0. Namaste, guys. guys. Namaste. Not stay. I mean, namaste. Namaste.